And when you look back at your career from where you started to where you are in your dream job, what would you say are some of those habits or, those things that you repeatedly did to bring you where you are today, to contribute to your success?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the first thing is people, right? You have to surround yourself with good people. You have to create a culture that questions itself, that continues to look outside of itself in order to see best practices, in order to see what's going on in the world, and then to bring those lessons in and integrate them into the work that you're doing. I think that's, and so therefore reading, watching, learning is constant. I keep a particular eye on what's going on internationally, because I think it's a really weak spot for our health system, is we're always trying to solve problems that other people have already solved if we look more broadly. And I would say when we're starting to do anything new, I always start with the people. Who are the people that could help us do this better, and get them in as early as possible. If it's internal, clear space for them to be able to do that work, and get the people side of it going well, and then everything else follows from that. If you've got the right brains on it, generally you can do anything, I think, but it's getting that first step started.
So true, getting the right brains, as you mentioned. And how do you get the right people to work with you? You've built teams, you've created the organization, the culture. How do you make sure that the people are aligned with your values, what you want the organization to hold, carry on, etc.?
Yeah, so it's interesting in mental health, because we're not a high-paying sector. So when I worked in the United Kingdom, and we could pay more broadly, then you go for someone with experience and with talent, right? I find that in the current job, I kind of have to choose. So we always look for people with talent, right? And try to mentor them, build them into the more knowledgeable role, right? You can always find knowledge and experience, but you can't find those people who can process things in their brain, think about culture, are enthusiastic, are dedicated to the job, communicate well. Those are the things that are really important in building a team. For me, it's a lot of how we look for talent is around seeing where their career path has kind of gone, what their aspirations are. We hire younger people, I think, than a lot of organizations, and try to build them. And if we keep them for 5 years and then they go on to do something amazing in the health sector, then that's awesome.
And is there one question you always ask someone you are interviewing?
Yeah, I always ask about culture. I always ask people, so how would you define your dream or best culture, and what would you do to create that if you took this role on? And it's really interesting, the answers you get, because they're all over the place. But
what's one of the best answers that you've received?
I think it's a culture where everyone's trying to help each other work together, where they believe their job is about making other people more successful. And if everybody in the organization, so I remember the person who said it, but if everybody in the organization works like that, then you'll always be developing and always be moving ahead. So.
And you mentioned a little bit about the pay equity, and how mental health is on the lower spectrum in consideration to all the other sectors. And that's a system issue. Do you have any insights or advice, or, how do we change this to make mental health equivalent to physical health or, the other sectors?
At the very core of it, there's a financing issue, right? Like the way we pay for mental health within the system is we give organizations or areas, geographic areas, an amount of money to provide mental health care. And, when it runs out, that's as much mental health care as you get. Whereas with physical health, we pay according to what's done. It's not like the ministry says, okay, well, we're going to fix 100 hips this year. You choose which 100 people get those hip surgeries. That's not how physical health works. In mental health, is it? You're going to serve 100 people. You choose which 100 you serve. So at the very at the very basis of the problem, you need to change the way it's funded. Why is one sector specifically, and addictions is the same. Why are these things that we ration, whereas other physical ailments are a right to be fixed?
Such a critical point, because funding has everything to do with our healthcare system here. Was it quite different in UK? Because they also have a publicly funded system, but it's more integrated, you mentioned.
Yeah, it is more integrated, and mental health is actually part of the overall insurance scheme, right? So you get served based on the fact that you have a problem, not based on how many we can do. And they made that decision when they brought Medicare in Canada, right back in the 60s and 70s, as they were developing the system. They decided they'd pay how many you do in mental health, and in the rest of the sector in the rest of the sectors it was you were paid by how many you could complete.
And that was such a long time ago. It's almost like we need to relook at all those legislations and those policies.
I agree. Yeah.
So David, as a leader, it's so important to be self-aware of our own strengths, our own weaknesses. How do you stay aware of your own blind spots now, and how can leaders become more self-aware?
Yeah, I think the first thing I'd say to that is keeping communication open with people who will tell you the truth. I make a habit every year and a half of just doing open sessions across the organization, 20 minutes with every employee. And anybody can schedule them. And the things you hear, they aren't necessarily your blind spots. People are more polite than that, but they talk about the organization and what's not going well in the organization, and that also helps you to reflect on your own. But I think there's also a big piece outside of work, who you surround yourself with, and who you talk to, and who's your support group outside of your organization. Like, I have a large group of friends who are socially minded and are not afraid to tell me when I'm being not so smart, right? And you have those debates and you start to form your opinions. But so two things, right? Allow people to communicate openly in the organization, and then I think you keep a group of people that keep you honest around you on the outside.
I love that, the 20 minutes that you open up to anybody to come and speak to you, because I think employees or staff often feel that they don't have a voice or they're not heard. And what do you enjoy most about your role as the CEO of CMHE Peel?
I still like it all. I like the fact that things are different every day, that there's new challenges. Like this last year, I never thought this would be what we're dealing with, but and you get to see people develop, right? Like I think what I said about younger, talented people coming through, the joy is I get to watch people pass me, right? And honestly, and that's the biggest joy, is when you're sitting there and you see, wow, that's awesome thinking, developing great ideas, and carry on, right? Like that's I think it's the development of the people is the thing that still gives me the joy.
And how would your people, your team, describe you as a leader?
I don't know. I think hopefully they would describe me as someone that supports them in meeting their goals and gives them permission and support to try things out, make mistakes, but that will always be there to cover them if those mistakes go bad or if things don't work out as well. I ask a lot of questions, and I think they'd probably say that when we're developing something. I don't tell people what to do. I ask them, have they thought of this? Have they thought of that? What about this aspect? What effect will it have in 5 years? Thinking more. A lot of people solve problems that are in front of them that will create problems down the road, and I think it's important to have that long-term lens as well. So I would say probably as a leader from behind more than unless there's somebody who needs to take it on the chin, and then I'll be out there.